Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Fireside Chat with Mayor Jeff Chunung. I am Mayor Jeff Chunung. Today, we have a special guest. This is Brenda Tennant. Brenda, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's our honor, actually, to have you. So we will get to the reason why Brenda's here in just a minute. I'm going to explain the council meeting agenda from last night to Brenda so that she remembers everything succinctly because she was there for almost the entire thing last night. So you tell me if I'm wrong, if I get anything wrong. So we had a couple of public hearings to start. Both of them were on Heartland. So that was just really a stage 2 area structure plan. We heard from a couple of residents about changing some land use around where we had the RCMP station was going to be originally planned, and then we realized we needed more space. So we now are moving the RCMP detachment further to the west, and we have 4.7 acres now instead of the 2, so we have more room for growth into the future. So we're not in the same position that we are in now, and that is in a tiny little RCMP detachment with a whole bunch of people piled on top of each other. So basically that was what we were talking about at the public hearing. Both got through the public hearings and then went right into the agenda. And usually I have like a big thick agenda like this, but today it's quite small, so we'll just get right to it. Yeah? First thing we talked about, land use bylaw amendment, Rivercrest. It was just a housekeeping item where we moved some ER around, and there was a pathway and a utility right away, and it was basically a housekeeping item that administration from planning brought forward, and we, like I said, moved a few things around, but really no major implications to anybody in that area. I doubt that any of the residents will notice anything different. It was just, like I said, a housekeeping item. So, which brought us to the grand agenda item, right? So last night we had our bridge naming brought forward, and council voted on the final name. Do you want to share what the name was? If everybody that's watching probably doesn't know yet.
Well, the name will be the Jack Tennant Memorial Bridge, and I'm just so thankful to the population of Cochrane for voting for that name, and the Tennant family is so proud. This is a legacy that will go on for many, many years, and Jack's grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be able to enjoy that bridge, and obviously the people of Cochrane.
Yeah, so it was a pretty moving ceremony. I didn't really know what to present to you as a person who's allowing your husband's name to be on a really major piece of infrastructure for the town of Cochrane. So we gifted you or invited you formally to the official grand opening of the bridge, which will be later in the fall of 2020. So it's a little bit of a time to wait, but now we know what the name of it is. But maybe there's a lot of new people in Cochrane that maybe don't know who Jack was. Do you want to maybe give us a little background on some of the history and why people of Cochrane have voted so much in favor of naming the bridge after him?
Yeah. First off, I'm quite surprised that it was named because of all the new people and young people in Cochrane that probably wouldn't have known who Jack was. But so that's another reason why we're so pleased, because it was really, really unexpected. It really was. But just briefly, if I can go back to about, say, in the early 1980s, Jack had bought the Airdrie Echo paper and the Rocky View Times.
Times.
Yeah, the county paper.
Yeah.
And I've always been in advertising with newspapers, and we decided that we needed to sell, I needed to sell advertising in Cochrane for the Rocky View Times. So I would come to Cochrane once a week, every Wednesday. And the first time I came down 22 and came into this little town, and believe me, it was a little town.
I know it was.
I don't know what the population was, but it couldn't have been any more than 3,000 or 4,000
Yeah,
people.
I was going to say about 3,500 people
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. And I could hardly wait to get back to Airdrie to tell Jack about this wonderful spot that I had found and that I would love to live here someday. And so anyways, I did drag him out here for lunch one day, and he said, absolutely.
So you're the reason
Well, yeah.
Jack moved to Cochrane?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
That we moved to Cochrane,
Yeah.
yeah. So, so we decided that we would start a paper here. So we managed to do that in the spring of 1984, and it was called Cochrane This Week.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
And we had that paper for 10 years. So we sold the group of papers, the Airdrie, the county paper, and the Cochrane paper. And Jack sort of concentrated then on his journalism career with the Calgary Sun and writing his column and all the things. And again, it was just like him. Everybody knows that he was responsible for the Sunshine Fund with the Calgary Sun, and the Salvation Army was very pleased. They raised more than $1 million in certain years.
Wow.
To help people. So we started this Cochrane This Week, and we sold it, and then about 7 years later, after the non-competitive clause had expired, Jack decided that we should start another paper, and recruited his son Ian from the University of Texas in Austin, who now has his PhD in journalism, to be the editor, and talked me into coming back in to run the advertising department, and we started the Cochrane Eagle on August the 1st, 2001.
So 2001, so 17 years ago,
Right.
the Cochrane Eagle first took flight in Cochrane.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And that's when we started having 2 newspapers in town.
Right.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And everybody, I don't mean to interrupt, but everybody thought, what do we need 2 newspapers for? And we still have 2 newspapers.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Yeah. But in all those years that Jack and I lived here, Jack was involved in so many things. In 1988, when Calgary was awarded the Olympics, Jack and several businessmen from here in Cochrane decided that they were going to put the Olympic rings up on the side of the...
I remember that too.
of the big hill. Right?
That was awesome.
Yeah. And it was just terrific. Everybody could see, you could see those rings
For miles.
From COP, people flying in airplanes could see them, and like, where
I'd forgotten about that.
What
Wow,
little
this is
town
awesome.
is that with those great big huge Olympic rings? So they had done that, but Jack was involved in a lot of organizations over the years. He was in Rotary, he was on the board of the Nan Boothby Library, the Cochrane Foundation, Grandparents Program, Grandparents Society, many things. But I think one of Jack's biggest legacies was the connection he made between Cochrane and the Stoney Nakoda Nation at Morley with those people. He very much respected those people, and those people respected him. And he was just he was a very, very humble and giving man, and always wanted to give back to his community, and he would just be absolutely floored at this recognition.
Well, I think it's so cool that somebody who has given his entire life to our community, that the community has an opportunity to give back to him. Yeah. So really happy with the outcome of this. Yeah. And I like that you mentioned the connection with Morley. I did mention it last night that we have, I've been reaching out and meeting with elders and etc. out in Morley, and they have mentioned Jack's name on occasion, so he's still held in very high regard in Morley. So I think it's really appropriate that actually the second name that came up in the voting was the Chief Walking Buffalo from the Stoney Nakota Nation, and Jack was given a Stoney name, right? And did I get it right last night? It's Gentle Buffalo?
Yes, it is Gentle Buffalo, yes.
So with the Chief Walking Buffalo and Gentle Buffalo, I hope that we can find some sort of way that when in the art forms that kind of are created around the bridge, that maybe we can honor both Jack and Chief Walking Buffalo and the Stoney Nakota at the same time. So I think it just kind of makes a perfect synergy.
Oh, Jack would love that. He would just love that. Yeah, he was very connected with the Morley people. Yeah.
So as we connect one side of Cochrane to the other, it's kind of a symbolism for Jack's connection to Morley. So yeah, I think it's really fitting. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add about Jack and his? I mean, there was so much. I mean, where do you start and where do you stop?
I wouldn't know where to begin, but I think probably one of the things that most people would probably know about Jack would be that he was the gentleman that had the Santa hat on.
I was just going to say that.
All of December. Yeah. Jack was very much, he loved Christmas. But it didn't just represent Christmas, it represented giving. Right. Very much in the giving mood. So, yeah.
One of the things, I wasn't really close with Jack, but I think everybody knew who he was. If you've been in Cochrane since the 80s, you were kind of living in a hole if you didn't know who Jack Tennant was, and Brenda for that matter. But one of the things he said to me during the election, he said, if you're successful, I want to see you take the door off the mayor's office. And I said, what? He's like, well, how better to portray an open door policy than to have no door? So every time I walk up there, I think about that, but I have not done that. But
I'll just add that over the years that we've lived here, every time an election came up, invariably someone would ask Jack if he would please run for mayor. And with the twinkle in his eye, he would always say, well, I can't possibly run for mayor. I'm afraid I'd win.
I think he would have, Well, people are voting for a bridge for him, and half the people of Cochrane didn't even know who he was. So
for Jack, it was always being on the other side and wanting to make sure that there was justice and equality and all of that. So he felt that being in political office would maybe not afford him that. So
he was able to still have his voice and say what he wanted to say. And he was very good at saying sometimes the hard things to people, even if it isn't what some of us would like to hear.
Exactly.
But I think that's what made the paper so successful and the readership so high because of that. And then photography too. So he was quite, I mean, I always...
quite the photographer,
Well, and had an eye for even choosing good photographers for the Eagle. I think the front page of the Eagle is always one of the things that I always looked forward to every week was what stunning image was going to be on there. So, and then wee Jackie weighing in in the paper.
And always ending his columns with Tennant's tidbit.
That's right. Well, that's awesome. I'm so happy that you were able to attend today and last night.
I'm very pleased to.
And And
represent the Tennant family. And
yeah, well, and I thought it was really cool that you had your grandkids and great-grandkids in attendance last night, and hopefully we didn't bore them too much with the other parts of the agenda that I talked about, but
no, not at all.
really special moment to have the bridge named after Jack.
We're very
Yeah.
pleased.
So again, thanks for being here and allowing us to go forward with that as much, I mean, you had to give permission, and we checked in with you, of course. So I'm glad you were as happy as we were to go through with this.
It's just wonderful. It's a wonderful legacy.
Yeah. So, I mean, we had one other thing on the agenda last night, and we just we appointed some committee members, but really, last night was all about the bridge naming. So I think that's a great place to wrap up today's Fireside Chat. And again, thanks for joining me. And just I look forward to the fall of 2020, as I think a lot of residents are, to make the physical connection from one side to the other of the river on the Jack Tennant Memorial Bridge. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.